Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. This is City Talk. Mayor Michael Bloomberg compared the future of New York City to previous fiscal crisis, and he really expressed real notes of optimism that we can get through this and get through it a stronger, more vibrant city. We'll see.
This city, through our 400-year history, has known more than its share of hardships. It has been burned to the ground while being held by an occupying army. It has been ravaged by cholera and yellow fever and other epidemics. It has been devastated by financial collapse time and time again. This collapse is something that we have seen before, and it was even forced to watch the Knicks last year. All in all, as the filmmaker Rick Burns has put it, we seem to have an instinct for catastrophe, yet after each calamity, including such deep downturns in the business cycle, New York has roared back virtually every time stronger than ever. And let me tell you, I couldn't be more optimistic that we are going to do it again. Today I want to take a little time to explain why. But it's not one of these things that you turn to somebody and say, fix it, I'll be back at lunchtime. It is going to take a little time. All of these things take time. Sadly, it takes a long time to build up to the excesses. We then correct very quickly and precipitously, and then we start the cycle all over again. The current economic calamity has revived the ghost in many people's minds of the 1970s, when the city's entire existence seemed in doubt. And I might point out that right after 9/11, all of the Cassandras thought that this city would never have another future. But I do think that there's a fundamental difference today between the 70s and right after 9/11. Back in the 70s, if you think about it, New York City's problems were caused or compounded by the fact that city government at almost every turn failed in its responsibilities. First, it failed to manage its budget responsibilities, which is what really brought the city to the brink of bankruptcy. It lost control of the streets and crime ran wild. It lost control of its school system, and a generation of children was left behind, many who have never recovered from that. It stopped investing in the subways, and people grew afraid to ride them. It stopped caring for our parks, and even Central Park became a dust bowl. The result, much of the middle class headed for the suburbs, along with plenty of businesses, and New York City became an international symbol of urban failure. Think about the difference to today. Crime is at a more than 45-year low, nearly 30% lower than it was 7 years ago, and just this year it's down another 15% compared to last year. After 9/11, the zeitgeist was low crime was a thing of the past, and we would be inundated with murderers and rapists and squeegee guys and everything from the most minor crimes that's annoying to the most serious crimes. And in fact, exactly the reverse has happened. We have reduced crime every year for 7 years in a row. Last year was the second lowest rate of murder in this city. The year before was the lowest since we started keeping records. And this year is off to a good start, I'm happy to say. We are never going to get the crime rate to zero, but we're going in the right direction, and we're going in the right direction with fewer police officers. We can't afford the size of the police department we had before, and I think we've shown that with better management from Commissioner Kelly and his staff, with using technology better, with allocating our resources where they're needed, not where it is politically expedient to do so, we can do more with less. Our school system has become a poster child in this country for how do you fix an inner-city school system. Only in New York do we whip ourselves over what hasn't been done and fail to appreciate or at least acknowledge what has been done. Dennis Walcott, my deputy mayor for education, and Commissioner Klein along with the 80,000 teachers and 14-odd thousand principals and all of the other people that work in the Department of Education, are finally giving our children the top quality education that they need to succeed. Graduation rates are up more than 20%, math scores, English scores, same kind of double-digit increases, crime is down. For the first time in modern memory, we are funding all schools fairly. When I came into office, we were sending a lot more money to the better schools, aka the white schools, and those schools where we had large minority representations and the pedagogical problems were clearly more serious, we underfunded by $2,000 or $3,000 per capita. No longer does that happen. Now we do it fairly. Every child in our city deserves, and we will attempt to give them, a quality education, whether their problems are learning to read or their problems are how they're going to win a Nobel Prize. Our parks, you can betcha. Shame on us for what we did before then. Our parks are greener than ever. We have more of them. They are safer, and they are more fun to be in. They are more pleasant to the eye. And our parks today are known throughout the world as safe, inviting places. And we are making good on our commitment that within a few years, every person will live within a 10-minute walk of a park. Our neighborhoods, once plagued by abandonment, are now defined by revitalization and redevelopment. Even with the downturn in the real estate market, you'd be hard-pressed to find vacant land and deserted buildings in this city. It is very different than any other city that I've ever been in the United States of any size. Here, you can go to those neighborhoods where 20 years ago we were talking about it burning down, and today it's a hot place to live and a hot place for restaurants and stores and everything else. Yes, there are more stores going out of business. There are more restaurants that are struggling. We are going through an economic downturn, but we're going through a downturn from a much higher base than we ever had before. In fact, our affordable housing plan has been so successful. If you remember, we committed to build 165,000 units of affordable housing, which would house more people than live in Atlanta, Georgia. We're over halfway through it, and President Obama took away Sean Donovan, our housing person, to be HUD secretary. That tells you what Obama thought of our plan. This was a quality guy, but I can tell you we're interviewing candidates, and we will find somebody who will continue that. We're not walking away, even in these tough economic times, from our affordable housing plan. And I also hope that Sean Donovan takes our call first. One thing is to recover from the 70s. The other issue is, why do we come back so strongly from 9/11? And I think that the reason there was slightly different. The city was in much better shape than it was back in the 70s. But in September 11th, we came together, and we never took our position as a world-class city for granted. That was the mistakes of the 70s, believing that people would always want to live and invest in New York City no matter how bad things got. And after 9/11, we realized that was not true, and certainly not in today's global economy. That's just dead wrong. We have to compete in this day and age to attract the dreamers and the doers together, and those who will launch the next wave of big ideas. Harvard's urban economist Edward Glaser recently observed human capital, which is the education and skills of a workforce, predicts which cities are able to reinvent themselves and which ones are not. And he added that the current downturn will only increase the returns to being smart, and you get smart by hanging around smart people. Now, we all know that, and it's why you have your businesses here. It's why I started my business here, and it's why we've always been a magnet for talent in every field, whether it's science and technology, film and fashion, marketing and media, and everything in between. Business begets business, people say. Well, ideas beget ideas. And the reason is that we all want to be with other people who are creative and hardworking and innovative. And so when you have the big mo behind you, it is relatively easy to keep it going. It's when the big mo is threatened by a precipitous event like 9/11 that you have to make sure that you recover right away and don't lose that momentum. If you look at the evolution of the modern American economy, it's true that most of the big ideas were pioneered here in New York. And we have to make absolutely sure that New York continues to draw and hold the world's best and most ambitious strivers so that we will continue to be the bastion of innovation. And the big question you're going to ask is, okay, how do you do it? Well, I think it starts first with providing a great quality of life in the areas that I mentioned before: safe streets, good schools, green parks, affordable housing, and reliable mass transit. The best and the brightest from around the world want all of those things, and they also want to live in a diverse international city. And I think if you go back and look, no city in the world can top us in that category, in fact, in any of those categories. And we're continuing to maximize the advantage by investing in arts and culture like never before. But we've also been able to maximize competitive advantages in industries themselves. And that's another part of the puzzle that we've been working on for the past 7 years. And I can give you some examples. Take film, TV, and film and TV industry. Plenty of directors and movie stars live in New York, and they want to shoot in New York. But for decades, they did their business in California, and Toronto, in Eastern Europe. We kept losing, we even lost New York films to being filmed in Boston. How can that happen? The answer is costs were lower, it was easier to get permits, nobody cooperated, and nobody seemed to care. So we began to push the state to offer producers a substantial tax credit, which the city has added a little bit to, but it's basically state money. And we revamped our Office of Film, Theater, and Broadcasting to make it much more business friendly. And the upshot is that the business has moved here, and thousands of jobs have been created over the past couple of years. And there's no reason why we have to lose that business. Every director and producer I have talked to, why do you film in New York? They'll all tell you the same thing. It is more expensive to do business here, but it is well worth it. That the New York workforce, even though the unions drive a tough bargain, they are well led, they understand that there's a competitive world out there, and they produce more. So it's worthwhile spending that extra money. You get more for it. I've said before, and not everybody likes the thought, but we are a value proposition of high costs and high rewards. We are not an industry that is going to compete, a city that's going to compete on being the low-cost producer. If you are the low-cost producer, you do not have a business. You do not have a city. There's always somebody that will work for less than you. And that is, in fact, what is happening. If you take a look at some of the low-cost producers around the world, they are threatening. Business is moving from Eastern China over to Western China because in Western China they'll work for less. Business is moving out of China down to Bangladesh and other countries, India, because other people are willing to work for less. If we get into that competition, we can't survive. We've got to give more, make it more valuable to work here, make it so good that you can't not work here. Another example is our fashion industry, which supports 175,000 jobs here. For many weeks, many years, as you know, the annual Fashion Week shows have been held in New York. But lately there has been a lot of pressure to move them to Los Angeles because they have outgrown Bryant Park, and that would be a real hit to our economy and to the entire industry. So over the last few years, we have worked very hard with the show's organizers, and today, as you may have read in the paper, I'm pleased to announce that Fashion Week will have a new home in an eye-popping new setting, and that's Damrush Park at Lincoln Center. And it is a move that, yes, it is. This was not an easy thing to accomplish, and people worked so hard to do it that they deserve an enormous amount of credit. It is a move that will put our more than 800 fashion firms, over twice as many as Paris has, more securely center stage in the fashion world. And that's the other thing that you should think about. New York has so many things that people don't realize. Who would have thought that Paris, which we talk about as being a fashion capital of the world, is half the size of New York City? This is the fashion capital of the world. This is the media capital of the world. This is becoming the IT capital of the world. I'll give you another example. We're working to maximize our competitive advantages in bioscience, which is going to be a huge growth industry in the 21st century. We have the best medical and research facilities in the world. But when our scientists want to move research to production, they often take their ideas to lower-cost locations. Well, we can't have that happen. And so we're trying to invest and make sure that the producers are here as well as the geniuses that invent and discover. And we've invested more than $40 million to create the kind of cost-competitive space, but a space in the right place near the other resources, near the brain power that bioscience entrepreneurs need to start and grow their business. And I'm happy to say that that investment is already paying off in the Brooklyn Army Terminal, where bioscience organizations are working on AIDS vaccines and a lot of other things, and on the East River, where we're helping to create a commercial bioscience complex that we think will rival anything in the world. The advanced technology that drives our bioscience industry is going to help drive job growth in many other sectors as well. You just think about the news media or advertising and marketing or telecommunications. Most of the growth in these industries is coming from the internet and other high-tech mediums. And people think, oh, high-tech, that's California. Wrong. These industries rely on creative talent for content and marketing and managerial talent, and we are the best position to attract them. Smart people want to live in a great place to live, and it gets back to those schools and parks and cultural institutions and safe streets and a quality of life and excitement and a chance to be with the best. We are as well positioned as anybody else to get these people, and that's why Google opened a headquarters here and employs some 1,500 workers. Microsoft has 1,000 employees here. Thomson Reuters and Bloomberg LP both have more than 4,000 employees here. The bottom line is, if you want to be successful, and intellectual capital is what you need to do that, this is the place you have to locate your business. This is where the employees you need live and want to raise their families. And we think that by creating the conditions for technology-based companies to succeed, we can continue to be a magnet for entrepreneurs and innovators. And that, more than anything, we think is the key to maintaining the strongest urban economy in the world. Now, in the months ahead, we will detail strategies for sharpening our competitive advantages in other industries that have growth potential, even during the recession, including one that is an important priority for us, sustainable design and development. But today, I'd like to talk briefly about how we can help the financial services industry and those in the industry who have lost their jobs. First, let me say, but we are absolutely committed to keeping New York City the world's largest and strongest center of global finance. I don't know precisely what the future holds for the financial services industry, but we can expect to become even more international in scope, and so we'll work to attract more business from overseas. And even though most American banks are not expanding at this point in time, many banks from China, India, and elsewhere are just beginning to open foreign branch offices here, and we intend to be on the front of the line. And also, don't forget, we have been through financial crises before, as I said, and every time on the way down, everybody thinks it's the end of the world and it will never recover. The good news is smart, intelligent people will find ways to create services that others want to buy. And our great job is to make sure that those people are here when that takes place. And we could just have every reason to expect, as every time in the past, this industry, like many others, will continue to pursue innovation, and they will have products that the world will come to our city to take advantage of. And so we're beginning to encourage new and open exchanges to locate in our city. That could mean exchanges in derivatives or other commodities and asset classes, including possibly carbon credits. We can expect the industry to continue bringing even more advanced technology here. The technology that we used 10 years ago feels ancient compared to what our kids are using today. Our challenge is to foster the entrepreneurship that so often leads to innovation, technology, and otherwise. The silver lining in the Wall Street layoffs, if there is one, is that highly educated, highly skilled people are losing highly paid jobs, and many of them will strike out on their own. That sounds familiar to me. If you look at my college transcript, I don't think I qualify for the highly educated part. But being unemployed in this city is not the worst thing in the world. It does have opportunity, and one of the things that we as a city have to make sure is that we give people that opportunity to the extent we can, that we help them in training, help them in knowing where the jobs are. We want to help them get innovative ideas off the ground, help laid-off workers get back to work. And to do that, we're going to partner with real estate leaders and universities to create incubator space for startups. We'll also offer entrepreneur boot camps to help those who have never owned a business. We'll use $3 million of city dollars to leverage up a $10 million new angel capital fund. Right now, total private sector angel investing in New York City is only $40 million, even though the demand for it is huge. And we think we can increase the pot by 25%, which will help another 200 entrepreneurs take the next step. Remember, job creation is something that's easy to talk about, but you have to create the kind of jobs that your workforce is capable of doing. And that is probably not using a backhoe. The people getting laid off in the city come out of offices and stores and restaurants. And so we have to find jobs that they can take, and that's going to come from small businesses, not big businesses. And I think that this whole country has to understand, certainly in New York City, 50% of the people are employed by small businesses. If we're going to really create jobs rather than just spend money, we have to focus on the small businesses equally with the large ones. And I'm pleased to announce today that as part of our efforts to help all New Yorkers connect to job opportunities, we've now launched a new website developed with the Partnership for the City of New York called CareerLink, and it's designed to help recently laid off entry and mid-level financial service professionals write the next chapters in their lives. You know, the city doesn't have the ability that the federal government has to print money. The city's budget is half of what the state's budget is. But that doesn't mean we should walk away from trying to find ways to help the people that live in this city who need help. Another ways we're working to foster innovation and entrepreneurship is by making it easier to open and expand those small businesses. And this year we'll push reducing or eliminating the unincorporated business tax for 17,000 small businesses. What you should know about the UBT, yes, it's a very big deal. The UBT was adopted in 1966, the year that I came to New York, back in the days when state and local government leaders didn't worry very much about competition from other cities and states. And we just can't afford to do that anymore. What the UBT does is it unfairly double taxes freelancers and sole proprietors who are among the most mobile in our workforce. And especially in a recession, we should be looking to do everything we can to encourage enterprising New Yorkers to work, and reforming the UBT would be a big step. And we're also helping small businesses make it easier to obtain permits in the city, easier to contract with the city, and easier to hire workers with training in their industry. Now, as we work to get through this recession, we're also laying the groundwork, I think, for the next big boom. Cities that get caught flat-footed during economic expansions don't have the capacity to handle growth, but we are not making that mistake, and that's why we rezoned Hudson Yards, Manhattan's last frontier. It is true it's probably a decade away from being built out, and undoubtedly the recession will complicate things in the short term. But over the long term, it will allow us to grow, create jobs, and expand our tax base instead of shrinking it, which is what happened in the 1970s. And if there's been one constant in the history of New York real estate over the past century, it's that where mass transit goes, development follows, and that is why we're investing $2 billion, not of the federal monies, but of our own city monies to extend the number 7 train from Times Square to 11th Avenue down to the Javits Center. And it's the first new subway track being built by the city in some 50 years. Somewhere along the line, the city stopped looking ahead. Well, we're not going to make that mistake. Shame on us if we do. Looking ahead doesn't mean turning our backs on the blue-collar industries that built this city. Far from it. You should know that roughly 500,000 people in New York City work in blue-collar industries. For For starters, we're investing a record $10.4 billion in city capital projects in this fiscal year. One of those projects is expanding the port on Howland Hook on Staten Island, which is already ideally suited for growth. Shipping will remain, we think, a huge industry in the 21st century, and I think we've spent too many years watching our business go to Newark and Philadelphia and Baltimore and not doing anything. Having big shipping companies in New York City, if they're on Staten Island, there is land. If they're in Manhattan, there isn't land. And today, the shipping industry is very different than it used to be. But that doesn't mean we can't find places to go and be competitive and keep those jobs here. And I think we are doing that. All in all, although we project we're going to lose some 300,000 jobs over the next 18 months, let's hope that that estimate is wrong, but that's the estimate of most of the independent analysts. We think that these strategies together will replace or create 400,000 of them, so 100,000 more than we'll lose. That's 100,000 families. And remember, the 300,000 in addition, if we didn't create the 400,000 jobs, those would be families who couldn't share in the great American dream. Protecting job growth, as you know, is far from an exact science, but we're confident that within the next 6 years, New York City will surpass its all-time high water mark for employing these people. And the jobs that are going to be created here will be good-paying jobs, many with benefits, and they're jobs that could be created elsewhere. We're not going to let that happen. Let me say one last word about our budget and how, once again, things are a far cry from the 1970s. First, the good news. During the good times, we prepaid billions in expenses and debt, something that certainly has helped cushion our current drop in revenues. We've set aside $2.5 billion for retiree benefits. And when the cloud storms started to form, we began cutting our budgets by over $2 billion during the last 2 years. I don't think there's any other city that I've ever heard of that has taken those steps. But obviously, we never saved enough. We never cut enough. We still have hard choices ahead, and you can rest assured we're not going to shy away from them. Because if we do, then the short-term pain will turn into long-term pain, and we simply can't afford that. And there's one more reason that I just wanted to mention as to why I have enormous confidence in New York City. Unlike the 70s, I think the New Yorkers are more united than ever. We live together and work together in ways that we didn't used to. We celebrate our differences in ways that we never used to. And we believe in each other in ways that we never used to. Now, part of that is attributable to time and healing of old wounds, but part of it is the civic spirit that we felt after the attacks of 9/11 and which we still feel today. But part of it is also that more than once, New Yorkers have worked to bring this city back from the brink of collapse. And we aren't about to give up on what we gained. We're going to keep looking ahead and moving forward and do for our children what we have to do. And we're going to do it by working together. The idea of New Yorkers working together to overcome any obstacle, to meet any challenge, was the theme of my State of the City speech just a few weeks ago. And 2 hours afterwards, a U.S. Airways plane landed in the Hudson River, as you know. Together, within minutes, a collection of uniformed services, relief organizations, and private citizens, New Yorkers together, rallied to rescue every single passenger and crew member. Those weren't words in a speech. It was reality. And nothing could make me as a mayor or a New Yorker prouder, knowing that this is a city of strong-willed and big-hearted heroes, a city of people who can do everything and anything. And also a group of people who took the time over the last few years to think about what happens if and plan how they would work together. That's why it was seamless. That's why together we were able to accomplish so much. Now, we can't foresee any eventuality, but I can tell you no city has ever worked harder on preparing for eventualities which we hope never occur. No city has worked harder as well to prevent those things that we hope will never occur. But when they do, together, we can do anything. And I am more optimistic about the future of this city. This is where I want to live. This is where I want my kids to grow up. This is where I want to make an investment. This is where I want to retire. More so than any other place and at any other period of time. We are very lucky to be New Yorkers. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Doug Muzzio. Let us know what you think about this show. You can reach us at CUNY.tv. When you get there, click on the bar that says Contact Us and send your email. Whatever it is. Thanks, no thanks, obnoxious, do it. Send it.